Hello and welcome to today's vBrownBag. Today I have Benedikt on the line with me, who's going to talk a bit about the platform services controller and the trust anchors. Just some quick notes. You can follow us on Twitter via the @vBrownBag account or use the hashtag vBrownBag. We do run these shows regularly for different time zones. If you are interested in actually presenting, feel free to reach out to me or any of the co-hosts or simply to the vBrownBag Twitter account as well. And with that, over to you, Benedikt.
Thank you, Frank. As Frank already told you, my name is Benedikt. I am escalation engineer with the German-speaking support team here at VMware. And today I want to tell you a little bit about the lookup service, the platform services controller, and how it interacts with external solutions like the NSX Manager, SRM, or Skyline. This is the vBrownBag edition of my talk. So I already delivered a similar talk at this year's Customer Summit. So yeah. First of all, I want to give you a brief overview about the lookup service and where it lives on the platform services controller and how it is replicated and what its purpose is. Then I will show you one of the most common issues. I guess everybody who ever touched their certificates will know this issue and how you could fix it in a few easy steps. Yeah, and the QA steps we just miss out on. Here we have a quick overview of a vSphere environment. Down here we have a platform services controller, then a vCenter server appliance, and a few hosts. And here's a different site within the same SSO domain. And yeah. With 6.7 update 3, we encourage to migrate the platform service controller back into the VCSA, but everything I say right now is true with an external and an embedded PSC. So yeah, what are the components in the platform services controller? So the platform services controller has a replicated database. This is called the VM directory or the VMDR. And it replicates between all the platform services controller in one vSphere SSO domain.
So let's just take a quick step back for those folks who've never heard about the PSC before. What kind of information does the PSC actually store in terms of the whole context of vCenter? So vCenter saves the information about the host, the virtual machines, or inventory, right? Yeah. What kind of information does the platform services controller actually hold in VMDR?
So the platform services controller holds the information about the platform services. So like the single sign-on, like role definitions, license management, the lookup service, which one? And the VMCA, so the vCenter's own certificate authority. But yeah, I will show a few of these components later in this slide. Mm-hmm. So as I already told, the platform services controller has a VMCA as well, so an own certificate authority. So this signs initially the certificate of the vCenter and for all the hosts that are managed by this vCenter and all the internal solution users and so on. So that these two vCenters can trust each other, the VMDR also contains a list of all trusted root certificates within one environment. Because if you just install this PSC's VMCA is just for the blue environment, and the green VMCA is just for the green environment.
So when you actually install a new PSC into an environment, on the installer, you get a drop down if you want to create a new site, if you want to join an existing SSO domain, right?
Yeah.
So once you join that existing SSO domain,
it will generate a new CA for this new PSC, and then it will replicate the changes throughout the VM directory.
Okay.
Here. Then we have the secure token service. So the secure token service is the single sign-on for vSphere. So if you log into the blue vCenter web client, you can see the contents of the green vCenter's web client without logging back in, because all the states of your current session is replicated between the vCenters, and the authentication is done by the platform services controllers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then we have the lookup service. The lookup service is one part of the platform services controller, also is replicated between all PSCs, and it contains information about when I want to talk to this endpoint. So when I want to open, or when I want to sign a new single sign-on token, what certificate should I expect if I go to this URL? So it's like a phone book, but instead of who should I expect if I call this number, it's in there like, what certificate should I expect when I click this link? So this is just to prevent man in the middle and misconfiguration and things like this.
But also to register new extensions into vCenter, correct? Yeah. So if I install like NSX, for example, on top of vCenter, it'll create a new entry in the lookup service for other solutions to be able to see what that URL is.
Yeah, so the lookup service is the single source of truth within a vSphere environment, mm-hmm, regarding extensions and what should I expect if I go to this API, if I want to call this API.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's have a look at the lookup service itself. The lookup service has multiple entries for multiple services. So this is an example service. In this case, this is the secure token service. And yeah, so it has a service product. So this service comes with the vCenter itself. Mm-hmm. Then we have a service type. In this case, this is the SSO, or this is part of SSO. Mm-hmm. It will provide the secure token functionality. Then every service has a unique ID within the vSphere environment, within the VMDR. So in this case, it is part of the default site because we stopped using sites in 6.7 onwards. Mm-hmm. And then it just has a unique ID here. And then every service has an owner. In this case, this is owned by the first vCenter in this environment, right? Mm-hmm. And every service has multiple endpoints, or can have multiple endpoints. In this case, I just showed one, for example. So here, every endpoint has a type as well. So here, when I want to do some identity functions within SSO, I will look up this endpoint. Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, then it will reply a URL. So if you want to do SSO, go to this URL, speak this protocol. Mm-hmm. So some WebSocket based protocol. And then the most important part is, if you connect to this URL, expect this certificate. If you don't see the certificate, you break, because we want to keep our products secure by default. And if we are telling you this is the certificate the service registered with us when it initially started. You connect to it and you get a different certificate, something is wrong. In 99.99% of all the cases, it is just a misconfiguration, but it could be something else. So yeah. And then we see these issues. Yeah, your NSX manager says it cannot connect because STS stuff, or the Skyline appliance says no, I cannot connect because of an SSO error, or SRM tells you I cannot connect to the other side because I cannot verify the certificate. So yeah, now I have a small demo how we can resolve this issue in just a few steps. So yeah, what are the symptoms? As I showed you, this is, for example, just an NSX manager, just because it was the easiest to deploy. So we see here it is disconnected, right? So what every admin would do is click edit, right? Say, yeah, this is my vCenter. The lookup service is on port 443. Here is my SSO admin, and this is the password, and click OK. So first of all, it will ask you if you trust this fingerprint, because the NSX manager does not know these vCenter, the vCSA's root certificate, so it cannot trust it.
So what is that the fingerprint of? That's the fingerprint of the machine SSL certificate of vCenter? So
yes, it is. So it will tell you about here, I'm connecting to this URL, and I'm getting this fingerprint back. So you can either SSH into your vCenter appliance, export the content of the machine of the VEX, so the endpoint certificate store on the vCenter, look at the machine SSL certificate, and double check the fingerprint, or just if you go to a different machine, open the vCenter, double check the fingerprint, or as I did in this case, just press OK because I just deployed the vCenter.
So on a fresh deploy, this should just go through, right?
Yes, exactly.
When would you expect to see possible issues with this?
So in this case, I changed the certificate of my vCenter, and I may or may not have forgotten to update the lookup service, because that is what I see the most. A customer or a TSE or a consultant goes in there and just exchange the certificate in the VEX store, because if you then restart the services, all the services will pull their new certificates, and if you're just living in your vSphere web client world, everything will be fine. Okay.
So certificate replacement as a
or some upgrades from 5.1 to 5.5 to 6.0 to 6.5 to 6.7, and in between you always change your certificate. But yeah, we all know the good old days with 5.5 and 5.1 where certificate replacements were super easy and totally fun. So at some point the vCenter itself thinks these are my certificates. It will go through the lookup service, look for these current certificates, doesn't find it, so it thinks, oh yeah, all is replaced, everything is fine, and then.
So it could technically also be some stale entries from a partially done replacement in the past.
Exactly. Or quick done replacement because my manager wants to have it green, right?
Yeah. Would you expect something like this to happen in a case where you just reissue the certificates? So if you pull up Certificate Manager, I believe it's option 8 to completely reset everything.
That depends of the current state of the lookup service.
Okay.
So If there's already a mismatch between what's in the VEX and what is in the lookup service, it will not be fixed.
So that step basically can fix your expired certificates,
Yes.
but if you already had some sort of slight garbage in the lookup service, that step will not resolve that type of issue.
But for that, we have the easy 4 steps, I guess, in here. So yeah, so we press yes because our NSX manager is still disconnected, right?
Yep.
And then it takes a while, and then we see this little error message. So yeah, what is the root cause of this? Well, it is in there. The root cause right now is that the SSL certificate of the STS service cannot be verified. So as I showed you earlier, when an external solution wants to connect or wants the certificate of an endpoint, it will get one, and then it verifies what it gets with what the current certificate is, and in this case, it fails. So yeah. Part 1, let's identify the rogue endpoint in the lookup service, right? So there's this little handy Python script on the vCenter. It is called ls-toolpy, so it is just the command line interface to talk to the lookup service. In this case, we want to list all entries in the lookup service. The lookup service in this case is on localhost, so we just connect to the locally listening port over HTTP, so we don't have to verify any certificates. Oh yeah, and then everything you get, please write it to this lovely services.txt because we want to do stuff with it later, and I don't want to see any errors or warnings because this is just an export. What could possibly go wrong? So yeah, it will run for a while, then we have this new services.txt at our disposal, right? So I know that it wants to talk to the SSO endpoint because it said it cannot verify the certificate for the STS endpoint, right? So I could either search for cs.identity.sso, which is normally fine, or look for STS service or something to identify the certificate. And in this case, this little SSL trust here is the certificate that the lookup service still thinks is the certificate that we are currently presenting on this URL.
Okay. So
we just copy it out and add a little begin certificate and end certificate before and after it. So OpenSSL can handle the base64 encoded certificate. Yeah, and we just drop these because why do you want to store more data if you know what data type it is? So yeah, so then we use OpenSSL to identify the fingerprint of our old certificate in the lookup service. So OpenSSL X509, so it is just a normal SSL certificate with all the extensions we all love and hate, and yeah, so we don't want the base64 encoded output, just give us the fingerprint. So this is the fingerprint of the old certificate. So what we now do is we double check what is in the VEX, so in the certificate end store on the vCenter. Yeah, so first of all, we export the current machine SSL certificate.
So where do I run this from? If I have an embedded PSC, that's rather simple. It's on the VCSA.
Yeah, exactly.
If I have an external PSC,
you run this on the PSC.
I run this on the PSC, yes. Not the VCSA.
Exactly. So all the commands I show here right now, you always run on the PSC.
Okay.
So if it's an external PSC, you run on the external PSC. If it's an embedded PSC, you run on the embedded PSC. So yeah, so VEX CLI, we want the machine SSL cert out of the machine SSL certificate store, save it into a file, that's it. Now we have another lovely certificate at our disposal, and we just run the same OpenSSL query again. And if we double check, this is not the same. The green one is the current one. The green one is also the one that the NSX manager asked us about if we want to trust it. And the blue one is the one that is in the lookup service, and they are not the same. So what we then do is quite easy. We just update the lookup service. So we have another lovely script. It's called ls_update_certs.py. And as an argument, it takes the URL of the lookup service, the fingerprint of the old certificate. So this is much easier than to handle large files or character strings, because this is a SHA-1 thumbprint. This should be unique enough to not collide with anything else in the lookup service. So yeah, we just look up the certificates that have the same fingerprint as this one. Then we also give it the certificate we want to replace it with. So go through the lookup service, look for this certificate. If you find one, replace it with this. Oh, by the way, yeah, we are the administrator user, and this is our highly secure password, which you should not run in your production.
So the cert file here that has the green highlight is what you exported from the VEX, the machine SSL.
Exactly. Yeah. It has a green box here. It had a green box at the other slides. So yeah, everything nice and color coded. So yeah, this is the current machine SSL certificate we just freshly exported. And then yeah, we hit enter. And then it will run for a while. And there will be a lot of warnings and info messages. So yeah, it will just tell you that it is doing stuff. And in the end, you should see updated around 30-ish services. So with 6.0, it was 27-ish. 6.5 is 31-ish. And yeah, so as we introduce more services will use the machine SSL certificate as their trust anchor, and the more functionality we reintegrate into the vCSA, the more services there will be. So yeah, if this fails, what it does from time to time, the last service that it will list out here is most likely the one that is misbehaving. We have it with some third-party solutions, with some first-party solutions. Sometimes they don't provide an SSL endpoint, and this is not up to the spec that we defined.
Okay.
And so the scripts we provide will fail. So the easiest step then is to go into the manage object browser and then just throw the extension out. It will re-register most likely. So yeah.
And if this is a third-party service, before doing so, consult with that third-party vendor. Okay. Actually, even if it's a first-party service.
Oh yeah. I had it yesterday in my home lab with the vSun health data protection service thingy. I just removed it, then I changed my certificates again, and up to now everything is still working.
Yeah. What I've seen from time to time is that there also can be duplicate entries for the same service in the lookup service.
Yes.
Is there an easy way to identify which one to remove?
Well, right now this one will just replace the certificate even in the old duplicated one.
Okay, so this one will not error out on the duplicate
it will not.
entries. Okay, cool.
If you have, if one of the duplicated services have a certificate that is not matching the blue thumbprint here, then it will not replace it.
Yeah.
Then the easiest way to get rid of it is to open this up with VMware, because we just dig deep into the VM directory and identify the service and throw it out.
Okay.
Because, if you want to do it yourself in your test environment, don't do it in your production. Most likely the services with the fewest endpoints is the oldest one, because we always add more, we never remove. So the fourth and final step is just to reconfigure the NSX manager or your external solution. So still red, right? Let's click edit, click OK. This is the correct fingerprint, as we identified multiple times earlier. We click yes, and normally you have to reload or relog in because this site is not up to date, but that's it.
Okay, perfect.
Everything is green, and 4 easy steps. The lookup service is not your enemy.
So this is true for basically all versions of vCenter, I assume, starting from when VMware introduced the lookup service.
Exactly.
So that would be starting from 6.0.
We also had a lookup service in 5.5, but the steps are totally different. And if you're still running 5.5, you may want to upgrade.
Okay, perfect.
So
Then
thank you, Frank.
Yeah.
If you want to reach out to me, there's my email address or my Twitter handle.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much, Benedikt. And with that, I wish everybody a good day or a good evening, depending on the time zone that you're in. And I think we can close this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.